Welcome in to Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a live show for you guys today. Ready to have some fun here. Been a little bit of a hiatus since we did a live show. Over a week. Happy to have you guys here. Happy to be here today. We are breaking down the Jaguars' biggest X factors in 2022. Please subscribe on YouTube if you have not already. We really appreciate your support. You can also follow me at Jordan DeLugo on Twitter, Generation Jaguar at Generation Jag. Helps out a ton. Again, we are looking at the Jaguars' biggest X factors in 2022. To frame this discussion, we kind of need to define what X factor means for this show for the purposes of our exercise here. We're saying X factor is a variable in a given situation that could have a massive impact on the outcome. So we're looking at players that if they hit for the Jaguars in 2022, which is far from a certainty, it will make a huge difference in the outcome of the season. It could have a massive impact on the wins and losses total by season's end. So we're going to look at a few different players here that I think fit into this category. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. So if you guys have any examples of X factors or players you want to talk about or anything you want to talk about Jaguars related, please just hop in the chat. And we'll have some fun here today for about 30, maybe 45 minutes, depending on how this all goes. But yeah, let's look at some X factors. Maybe some players that have had some struggles throughout their career, but they have big talent, or they just haven't had that breakout yet. Who do we got? I think the biggest X factor might be someone that a lot of you guys could guess out there. I'm looking at Evan Ingram, Jaguars tight end. They signed him to a 1-year, $9 million deal this offseason to come in and be a big-time playmaker. It's a prove-it deal, clearly, based on the, just 1 year and $9 million there. But $9 million for 1 year is a pretty penny. It's not nothing. We've got some people hopping in the chat here. Cole says, I'm going to take a stab before your list is unveiled. ETN, Walker, Viska, and Allen. Okay. Very interesting. We'll definitely get into it here. Patrick Jackson said, well, that sounded like a perfect description of Viska. Well, if you have seen the thumbnail here, if you're watching on YouTube, you probably know he might be on this list. But we're starting with Evan Ingram. Again, former first-round pick, massive talent. I don't know if there's 5 tight ends in the NFL that have more God-given ability than Evan Ingram when you look at his catch radius, his speed, his quickness, his route running, his ability to make spectacular catches, his mismatch ability. You put a corner on him, he's going to body the corner. You put a linebacker or safety on him, he's going to outrun them, out-athletic them. So why hasn't he been a stud to this point in his career? Well, there's been some inconsistencies on his part, but you could also look at the inconsistencies around him in New York. You haven't had stellar quarterback play. You haven't had stellar scheme. You haven't had really an advantageous situation for offensive weapons to really break out in a big way in New York. Look at some of the other guys that have struggled in New York. Kenny Golladay really struggled last year. Saquon Barkley has dealt with injuries, but he has not been the player when healthy that a lot of people expected him to be. I think there is an argument to be made that getting out of New York is the best thing Evan Ingram could have done. Then you look at the landing spot and you look at him being with Doug Peterson, being in an offense where he's not the only tight end that can get the job done. Dan Arnold is also here. Chris Manhertz is also here. You've got some talent around you. And I'm not here to argue for or against Evan Ingram right now being a legit player. The argument here is that he is an X factor. He's in Doug Peterson's offense. He is the most physically gifted tight end we've probably seen in Jacksonville before. And if he hits, he's going to be a mismatch nightmare in the middle of the field for defenses. He's going to be a player that really unlocks, if he hits, the running game. He's going to create space and cause defenses to give attention to him, which could open up Christian Kirk, Leviska Chanult, all these other players on the Jaguars offense. If Evan Ingram, because he is so physically gifted, he is so athletic, and he is so much of a mismatch when he's on, I think he gives you a massive X factor. Like if he hits, this offense could be rolling quickly. If he doesn't hit, well, you do still have Dan Arnold that you feel really good about as a receiving tight end. You have some other pieces. You could still get by in 2022. But if he hits, you could see a massive leap from this offense. Doug Peterson knows how to use the tight ends. Evan Ingram is a crazy talent who just hasn't quite gotten it right yet in his career, and maybe he won't. That's why he's an X factor. We don't know what we're going to get from Evan Ingram. There's a decent chance you would think that Doug Peterson, who's gotten the most out of every tight end he's ever worked with, will get the most out of Evan Ingram, but we'll see. We've got some comments in here. Cole says Ingram just needs softer hands and he'd be ridiculous. The thing about Ingram is you see him make a lot of routine catches. You see him make unbelievable, acrobatic, spectacular catches. But yeah, then you see every once in a while the ball just bounces off the hands and you're not sure why. Patrick says, Ingram is a good shout. I hadn't considered him because his production is up or above our tight end ones from recent seasons, though I agree he looks like he has the potential for more. Yeah, so his production, you're right. He has been productive as a tight end in New York. He has not been reliable. And again, I'm not completely blaming that on him, but his hands have been unreliable. He's just made some really unfortunate errors, really mental errors, focus errors throughout his career at bad times. But if he is able to minimize those, if Doug Peterson is able to get the most out of him, Evan Ingram could really unlock this offense. Us and Them says, we all know Doug loves to use tight ends back with Ertz and Burton, and when they won the Super Bowl, Ertz was his leading receiver. Absolutely. That's Doug Peterson is a big part of this. Trevor Lawrence is a big part of this. He will attack the middle of the field if it's there. Yeah, Patrick says it's all about creating those mismatches. Kyle says, is Kevin Austin dropping a lot of balls? Well, he's been inconsistent, plain and simple. He's been inconsistent. I think the mandatory minicamp after OTAs, that was really only mandatory for young players and players rehabbing from injuries, Austin kind of struggled, to be completely honest with you. Timmy Devil says he can't catch. I don't know if we're talking about Austin or Ingram, but I could understand that argument for either, really. Although Ingram absolutely can catch. It's just about the focus stuff. Timmy says Ingram can't catch. I would encourage you to go back and watch a lot of his film. I mean, he makes incredible catches. It's just that he drops some easy ones, unfortunately. Elijah says, thoughts on ETN's production this year? I've talked a lot about that. Maybe at the end of this show, we can get back to that. But we're going to roll through some more X factors here. And if you do think Travis Etienne's an X factor, I can understand that. I don't have him on this list because I don't think there's any question about his ability. I think he is going to come in and be one of the most explosive running backs in football. That's what you saw from him at Clemson. That's what you've seen from him on the practice field. I don't think there's any reason to believe he won't be that, unless you're just worried about the injury. But we've seen him on the field already this summer, and in the videos you've seen from him working out in Dallas with his running backs coach there. I'm not worried about Travis Etienne. Elijah says, just tuning in. Appreciate it. Appreciate you being here, Elijah. All right. So, our next X Factor, Andrew Mevis / Ryan Santoso. Whoever wins this job is going to be an X Factor. And I know a lot of people are like, X Factor, kicker. Are you kidding me? I think these two, whoever wins this job, is the perfect example of an X Factor because you've got an undrafted free agent rookie and a guy who's been around for a couple years in Ryan Santoso, but has never really been a full time NFL kicker. I believe Andrew Mevis will win the job, but the Jaguars, they're working on Ryan Santoso. They're kind of trying to alter his swing a little bit, if you will, to get him more accurate. And he has an unbelievably powerful leg. So if he's able to incrementally increase his accuracy, you could see him being a potential starting kicker in the NFL if they're able to get that done. Um, I I think it's going to be Mevis, but regardless of which one it is, you don't know how they're going to perform on the NFL stage when they're a starting kicker. If they come out and you're in some close games early on and they're missing kicks, you're in trouble. If they're missing kicks and you're in these close games against Washington, against Indy, against Philly, the Chargers, even if their Jaguars are able to compete in that one over the first 4 weeks of the season, if you have negative impact from your kicker, they're missing field goals, they're not doing great on kickoffs, that can swing games, especially in the NFL when I know the Jaguars haven't been in a ton of close games lately where your kicker is making a huge difference, but you have seen examples of it even last year with Matthew Wright. Um, if these guys are accurate or whoever wins the job is accurate early on, that could help the Jaguars steal a game or two early on in the season. If they're inaccurate, it might be the reason the Jaguars can't get over the hump against some of these teams they're playing early on. So I think kicker is a huge X factor because you don't really know what you're getting from either of them on the professional stage, on the NFL stage as a full-time starting kicker. I think Andrew Mevis is talented. I think he showed the ability to be a starting kicker in the NFL at Iowa State last year. Made a lot of big kicks, but again, this is a rookie, undrafted. You're not just handing him the job, so you obviously don't know if he's going to be your guy or not. It's interesting. I think whichever one wins that job is going to be a major X factor early on because you don't know what to expect and their impact will be massive, whether it's in a good way or a bad way. Looks like a lot of people in the chat here, they have their money on Mevis. I do as well. I think he has the leg. I think he has the accuracy. It's all about as long as he can keep it, kicking is a mental game. As long as you can keep yourself right upstairs, you can play for a long time if you have the talent. Us and Them says one X factor is going to be Scherf's injury status. He seems to have been hurt quite a bit over the last few years. Absolutely. And I think he's played in about 2/3 of each of the last couple seasons. Sorry, I see my video kind of messing up a little bit here. Sorry about that. But yeah, his injury status is going to be an X factor because he is the best player on the Jaguars roster right now, bar none. 5 Pro Bowls in 7 years. Absolutely nasty guard in the run game and a really good pass protector as well. But I do think the one good thing when you look at Scherf is if he is out, who steps in? It's going to be one of Ben Bartch, Luke Fortner, or Tyler Shatley, whoever's not starting at left guard and center. And so I don't think you feel terrible about that drop off. Like you feel like you can get the job done with one of those guys, in my opinion. Patrick says keep Santoso on as a fullback. Yeah, fullback, tight end, defensive end, whatever you need him to do, he's got the size to get it done. I'm with you. Volkfang says every day gets me more excited to win more games this year than probably the last 3 years combined. What is the last 3 years combined? Over the last 2 years, they've won 4 games. What'd they do the year before that? Elijah says, "Got to go to work. Keep up the great work. Do all till we die." Absolutely. Appreciate you, Elijah. Hope work treats you right today. All right. So more X factors that I've got here. Foley Fatu. Okay. This is a guy coming over from New York. Um, Mike Caldwell, the Jaguars defensive coordinator, was on staff in New York when Fatu was drafted. So you've got that going for you, some familiarity there. He's coming off a season in which he didn't play at his highest level, and I think he was really miscast in Robert Sala's 4-3 defensive front. He's getting back into a 3-4 multi-front system here with the Jaguars with Mike Caldwell, and I think that should lead him to have more success like he did when Todd Bowles was the defensive coordinator and Mike Caldwell was on staff there in New York. But I just he's coming off a not great year, and the Jaguars are paying him 10 million per year. He is the 14th highest paid defensive tackle in football. He's certainly not a household name. If he can make an impact for the Jaguars in terms of being a block eater, a gap eater, someone who can two gap, 1.5 gap, and really just free up space for your edge players, for your penetrators, for your off ball linebackers to run and fly to the ball, then he's going to be worth his weight in gold without question. You didn't see it as much last year from Foley. And again, he was in a scheme, the 4-3, that didn't suit really what he does best, which is just eat up blocks. And I think that he has a chance to be a massive X factor for the Jaguars, a big impact for the Jaguars because the way they're built, if he can be that stabilizing force on the interior, you've got Josh Allen, you've got Trayvon Walker, you've got Foye Oluokun, you've got Devin Lloyd. These are guys that can fly around the field and attack the football. And if Foley holds up in the middle, they're going to be allowed to do that. So I think it's a big deal there. Volkfang says, well, 6-10 in 2019, so maybe we equal the last 3 years combined. So we're talking about 10 wins. That's right? 6 plus 4, 10 wins in 2022. I think everybody and their mother would take that if you're a Jaguars fan, no question. My next, sorry, the video keeps going out. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing that or if that's just on my end, but we'll work to get that corrected for the next video. But my next X factor is Leviska Chanult. He's the guy on the thumbnail. He's the guy that makes a lot of sense as an X factor. Because if you get rookie year Leviska Chanult, which was a player that was big and powerful, reliable with his hands, and fairly quick for his size. Oh, goodness. Interesting comment here. But if you get Leviska Chanult playing like he did as a rookie, or even better than he did as a rookie, because he now has 2 years of experience, knows what he did wrong in 2021, you could get a player who is currently your fourth receiver playing at a level where he could be a second or third receiver. And if you get that type of improvement from Leviska, or you get that type of regression back to the mean of what we saw from him as a rookie, that could be massive because you're relying on Christian Kirk, you're relying on Marvin Jones, you're relying on Evan Ingram, Dan Arnold, Travis Etienne, James Robinson when he's healthy. If you also get Viska coming in and playing how he did as a rookie, again, like Evan Ingram, that could unlock so much for this offense. Us and Them says Wingard is going to be an X factor, the goal being to keep him on special teams and not defense. Okay, yeah. I can buy into that. Keeping Andrew Wingard off the field on defense is an X factor. especially when you're playing the Colts, Titans, and Texans, who are going to try to pound the rock a ton. You do not want Wingard on the field for that. Cole says, I don't even want him on the final roster. Yeah, I get that. I think he's had a lot of disappointing moments in Jacksonville, but if you're just talking about him as a core special teamer, back of the roster guy, I don't think he's horrible. I don't think he should be the third safety, which is what it looks like he is right now. But making the roster, I could understand an argument for him making the roster. So far, we've got Evan Ingram, Andrew Mevis / Ryan Santoso, Foley Fatu and Leviska Chanult. I've got one more. Patrick Jackson says you can't teach carrying 6 defenders 8 yards to pick up the first down like we've seen Viska manage. If he can get his catch rate back up, he's invaluable, especially on 3rd and medium. Yeah, that's one thing because Viska did drop so many passes last year, not a lot of people talk about. He was by far the Jaguars' most clutch target on 3rd and 4th down last year. The Jaguars went for it a ton on 4th down last year. I imagine they will do it again this year because Doug Peterson has proven to be one of the more aggressive play callers when it comes to going for it on 4th down. Leviska was the most reliable target in those situations last year. It's very bizarre that he was so inconsistent on 1st and 2nd, and then incredibly reliable on 3rd and 4th down. But you want to see him get the full consistency back, and then you can feel more confident in him. But yeah, I think he is invaluable on those 3rd and 4th downs. Us and Them says, I heard he was working on speed with a track coach. He was. So last year, I think he talked about this. He got in the weight room a little bit too much. Got a little bit too jacked up. Leviska did. And I think it negatively impacted his flexibility and his quickness. And I think you'll see that back from him this year from what we've seen on the practice field so far. He looks quick, and then you look back at his rookie tape and you see that quickness. I think he was focused on the right things this offseason, had the right people in his ear. And I think he's going to be, he is an X factor. I believe he's going to come out on the positive side of that X factor and be someone who elevates the Jaguars offense, because right now he's the 4th receiver in line. I think he's going to play more like the 2nd or 3rd best receiver on the team. And he should. Like, he has the draft pedigree. He has the athleticism. He has the physicality, the unique talent, the unique ability. He should be 3rd at worst, in my opinion. I think he's a better player than Zay Jones. But yeah, so my final X factor that I've got here is Trayvon Walker's pass rush. His ability to stop the run, his ability to stunt and be useful as a chess piece, a guy that can drop, again, stop the run, move all over the place. He's got that down. I have no problem with that. The X factor with Trayvon Walker, with the number 1 overall pick, is the individual pass rush. If he can be an effective individual pass rusher, because I know he can win on these stunts and different games up front, but if he can win one-on-ones against left tackles or even guards, depending on where he's aligned, if he can get into the backfield by himself, not with scheming it up or anything, which the Jaguars are going to scheme it up, don't get me wrong. But on the plays where they're just kind of trying to keep it more vanilla, keep everything in front of them, if he can get into the backfield by himself, this Jaguars defense is going to be, I think, one of the more surprising units in the league, because that's going to help Josh Allen. It's going to help Roy Robertson Harris. They're going to work in unison and tandem and really help each other out. You've got linebackers that can cover. You've got Tyson Campbell, Shaquille Griffin, Andre Cisco, Darius Williams. All these guys can cover really well. If you have 2 edge rushers that can win one-on-ones, which Josh Allen has proven he can do, if Trayvon Walker can do that, it's going to be a nightmare for opposing offenses. Cole says X factor is Press Taylor. That's interesting. I think he is important. He's doing everything for the offensive side of the ball outside of calling plays. He's installing the offense. Um, he is also working with Jim Bob Cooter, who's the passing game coordinator. They're working on getting this offense going and ensuring that they get off to a fast start. He won't be calling the plays, but he'll be doing everything else. So yeah, his ability to manage the entire offense, to effectively teach all the different position groups and be a positive impact. Yeah, that's an X factor. He's never been an offensive coordinator before. Doug Peterson wanted him to be his offensive coordinator in Philly, and that's why one of the reasons Peterson ended up ultimately not sticking around in Philly is a difference in opinion on the future, on moving forward between Peterson and Jeffrey Lurie with the future of the Eagles organization. Cole says, my idea there is him being one of the core minds of creating good plays. Yeah, I agree. I think it makes a lot of sense. And for that matter, you can say Mike Caldwell is a massive X factor. I believe in Mike Caldwell. I think he's going to be a really good defensive coordinator in the NFL. I think he teaches the right way. I think he thinks about the game the right way. But has he proven that he can get the job done as a play caller? Absolutely not. He hasn't done it in the NFL. I believe he will prove out to be that way, to be a quality defensive coordinator who teaches well, who develops players well, who gets the most out of his guys. I think his reputation, what I've seen from him in Jacksonville so far, all that stuff points to Mike Caldwell being a success. But he's still got to do it. Still got to do it, absolutely. Again, I'm sorry about the video issues going on here, but hopefully the audio is coming through just fine. We'll get that corrected for next time. But that is going to do it. I don't see anything else in the chat. We'll wait around for a couple seconds. Oh, it's Us and Them says, hopefully Press can get his brother's success with us and make it to a Super Bowl. Yeah, one of the interesting things about the Bengals' run last year is their play calling on offense was pretty damn vanilla. And when you have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, you can be pretty vanilla. And Joe Mixon in the backfield. But when you saw them lined up I form or, single back under center, you knew it was going to be a run to Joe Mixon. You saw them in the spread, you knew you were probably getting 9-8-9 or some variation of it. But it works when you have that type of talent. So I do think you can say that Zach knew the strengths of his team and said, it doesn't really matter if the defense knows what we're doing. You're not going to stop us. For the most part, that worked out. I don't think Press will be as vanilla with his play calling this year as Zach was last year. Patrick says, you mentioned Dan Arnold in the Ingram section. Do you have a feel for how well his recovery has gone? Because it was a nasty injury he was rehabbing. Is he going to be as good as Arnold? Yeah, he looks good. He doesn't have any lingering injury problem right now going on. He looks really good. Looks athletic. Looks like he's got that catch radius that you know and love from him. He's a guy that can stretch vertically and horizontally with his athleticism and his size. He's not thick, but he continues to add weight to his frame, good weight to his frame. Still a little thin for a tight end, but his length and athleticism and quickness is impressive. And I think if Evan Ingram wasn't here, he would be a fine first receiving option as a tight end. But now that you have both of them, you could really open things up there. But yeah, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for tuning in, Duval. Hit me up on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo. Follow Generation Jaguar at Generation Jag. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube and check genjag.com for all the latest Jaguars news, analysis, and Duval gear.